In this session, the next session, I'll be discussing about the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita and how this chapter offers a mirror to the world as we are experiencing it nowadays. So we will discuss some of the verses, and the way we'll discuss it is, I'll explain the verse, then we'll recite the verse, and then we will try to discuss it. So we will focus on some of the verses in the chapter. So how many of you will be there tomorrow also? Okay, almost all of you. A few of you will not be there. So we will see how much of this chapter we can try to cover. We'll focus on some verses, but overall we'll try to get an overview of the chapter. Okay. So let's look at the 11th verse first. This is Krishna is telling Chinta. What does the meaning of Chinta? Anxiety, yes. And aparimeya. Now pramana. Pramana is to know, to measure. Aparimeya means to that which cannot be measured. So great anxiety. Certainly. Chintam aparimeyam cha.
Chintam aparimeyam cha.
And Krishna is saying, how long does the anxiety last? Pralayanta. Now, pralaya can mean death, but that individual death, it can also mean cosmic destruction. So, till the point of that plan, upashritaha. It's algo, ashray means what? Shelter. So, upashritaha means, it's like they have taken shelter of. So, Krishna is, everybody has anxiety in life. That's the nature of life. So tomorrow if you have to go from here to catch a train, and if your transport from the bus or the bus, whatever gets delayed, there's anxiety. So there is circumstantial anxiety that everyone has. But that anxiety comes and goes after some time. But here Krishna is saying that this anxiety has two characteristics. It's immeasurable and it is perpetual. Till the point of destruction. Pralayanta Pralayantam upashritaha. And the next part he says, it is both a subsequent description as well as a causal connection. That is, Krishna is describing two characteristics, so one after the other. But the second characteristic also is a cause. So why do they have so much anxiety? Kama upabhoga. So kama is desire. Upabhoga is enjoyment. So now everybody has karma in the world, and we'll talk about that karma is also one of the purusharthas in life. But Krishna is telling that upabhoga, that the enjoyment of the senses, what is their characteristic? Parama. Parama means it is the most important thing in life. Yeah, that is one part of it, but they make it the most important thing in life. Kamopabhoga parama.
Kamopabhoga parama.
And it is that they don't have any doubt about this. They are convinced about it. In fact, their conviction in the fact that sense enjoyment will give happiness is much greater than a devotee's conviction that Krishna will give me happiness. So, etavat iti nishchitaha. Etavat, this conclusion, iti thus, nishchita. Nishchit means certain, convinced, isn't it? Etavat iti nishchitaha.
Etavat iti nishchitaha.
So, let's recite the verse together, not responsibly, but together, 3 times. Chintam parimeyam cha pralayam upashrita kamopabhoga parama etavat iti nishchita. Chintam parimeyam cha pralayam upashrita kamopabhoga parama etavat iti nishchita. Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayam upashrita kamopabhoga parama etavat iti nishchita. So here we are talking about the divine and the demoniac natures. So, which nature do you think is being described right now? Sorry? Divine nature, isn't it? Now, clearly, if we think it is a divine nature, then we are certainly demoniac. So, it is the demoniac nature being described. So, let's look at the characteristics. A worldview is. Okay, it's not clear. Oh. Okay, let me see if I change the background here. How do I do this? So, anyway, you can recite the words also. Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashritaha kamopabhoga parama etavad iti nishchitaha. What's going on here? Okay. So if I change, is this better? Okay. Where did it go? Okay. So it is this chapter is describing the divine and the demoniac natures. Now, when we use the word nature, what is it referring to? Basically, when we talk about nature, Krishna is outlining that nature one by one, the various characteristics of that nature. So, when we talk about nature, when you think of, this person is good nature, this person is not so good nature, what is your idea when you say use the word nature? What all does it convey? Yes?
Somebody response or activity.
Response or?
Kind of response he gave to some situation.
Okay, so it is characterized by response to situations. So some people, if they have done something wrong and we give them some feedback and they are humble and grateful and they accept, and some people we give them a feedback and they just give us a feed front. So they just start attacking us, criticizing us. They just don't take it. So how people respond to situations. So one is, it could be also different kinds of situations. When they are in anxiety, when they're in a stress, how do they respond? That's one aspect. We'll come to this more little later. Anything else?
Swabhava.
Okay. I'm not sure, I was looking for the translation. Yeah, that is true. Okay, we could use the word, actually the word Daiva Asura Sampada Vibhaga Yoga. So the Sanskrit word basically is, we can look at this, it's not a wrong thing. The word is Swabhava. What other words can we use for, sorry, nature? No, let's now do the translation word completed. What other words could we use? Krishna himself uses the word Sampad. The translation, Daiva Asura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. Another word could be Prakriti. Yes. We could also have Vritti. Vritti has a specific meaning. But these are various words we could use. So, but what else does nature mean to you?
Liking and disliking.
Yes. What likes and dislikes. Somebody says, I like to dislike you. Now, we all may dislike someone, we can't really control that. Some people we just get along, but some people we just can't get along. But if we can't get along with someone, we at least try to conceal it. Isn't it? It's not that we are just bitter and rude with them. But somebody actively likes to dislike. Then, okay, and this is a little dangerous person. We may have dislikes, but at least we try to regulate them. Raga, Dvesha, Vimukta istu Krishna. So we naturally have Raga and Dvesha, but at least try to regulate it. Okay, our likes and dislikes. You could say not just likes and dislikes, and our attitude toward them. We will all have our likes and dislikes, but how do we look at our likes and dislikes? Anything else?
Characteristics.
Okay. Can you give some example of what you mean by characteristics?
Different types of qualities, like tolerance.
Okay, characteristics could be like tolerance, kindness, humility, like that. Yes. So essentially, when we talk about nature, are we referring to the soul or the body or the mind?
Mind.
Okay, how many of you think mind? How many of you think body? Okay, how many of you think soul? Okay, you are the sole person who thinks about it, the soul. Okay. Okay. Yes. So now, if we consider every soul is a part of God, that means everyone at their core is godly, is good. So basically, if we consider the soul is always, in one sense, good, or godly or pure, whatever word you want to use for it. Now, around the soul is the subtle body, which we can call as the mind. Around that mind is the body. So, broadly speaking, the nature refers to the body-mind machine. Now, it refers to the mind primarily, you could say, but also refers to the body. Like some people are very neat and tidy. And some people, they come into a room, after 5 minutes you think, did a hurricane come and hit this room? What happened? Everything is disorderly. So it's behavior. Some people, maybe they wear, their clothes are neat, some people are clothes are just completely messed up. Some people, they are neatly shaven, some people are completely unkempt. So that comes out in behavior also. So basically it's primarily mental, but mental doesn't stay mental. It's what is in the mind, it also reflects in the body. So when we are referring to the swabhava in this case, the prasampada, the prakriti, the nature, we are talking about the body and mind. So here Krishna is describing the characteristics. Now we are picking up in the middle because these 5 verses are especially important as a vivid picture of the nature. But it's given the entire chapter, but we will be focusing on, we'll see in today's session, we'll try to complete 16, 11 to 15. This gives a vivid picture of demoniac nature. Now, have any of you heard of this term called plausible deniability? No. Okay. Do you know the word plausible?
Feasible.
Okay, sorry?
Feasible.
Feasible. Okay, feasible. Yeah, plausible is more like believable, reasonable. If somebody says, I couldn't come for the meeting because an alien came and abducted me. Now, is that a plausible reason? Well, you can say anything is possible, but it's very unlikely. So plausible means it's a believable reason. And deniability. When you say deny, what does it mean? Deny means say, no, I didn't do it. Somebody accuses you, did you do it? No, I didn't do it. So plausible deniability basically is a legal term which is used, say if now some newspaper writes some suggestive article about some politician, but they absolutely don't mention the name of that politician. And they say, we are only talking in general terms, we didn't refer to you. Because if you refer to a particular person, then there can be in court libel cases. You have spoiled my name, you have spoiled my reputation. So sometimes what happens, 2 people are talking with each other, but both of them know who is being talked about. but neither of them mention the name of the person. So अक्लमंद को इशारा ही काफी होता है. So both of them understand. So like that, now who is this discussion going on between Krishna and Arjuna? Where is it going on? On the battlefield. So when Krishna is talking about divine and demoniac natures, he is not talking in an abstract vacuum. Who do you think he is talking about? Yes, Duryodhana. So we will see that while he is referring in general terms to the demoniac nature, but there is an example right in front of both of them of the demoniac nature. So Krishna will talk about demoniac nature at various levels, in the sense that he will talk about their thought process and then behavior. So if you look at this series of verses, 16, we are right now discussing the 11th verse. So 11th verse primarily describes 11th and 12th verses. Basically it's describing their desires and fears. So it's like a introduction to their mental state. So generally speaking, if we consider in the Mahabharata, who was a person who was constantly filled with anxiety and fear? Dhritarashtra. Now normally we don't think of him as a demoniac person, do we? Well, he is like a passive demon. Duryodhana is the active demon. So what happens is that he is filled constantly with chinta. That if you see, he goes along with Duryodhana's schemes or Shakuni's scheme to try to plot against the Pandavas. But after the scheme goes through, sometimes it is successful, sometimes it is not successful. After he allows the entire gambling match to go through and the Pandavas are defrauded of everything, then he's not able to sleep at night. He calls Vidura and he says, Vidura, you know, the Pandavas are so angry with my sons. What can I do to protect them? Vidura says the time of protecting them is over. He says the only thing you can do now is that you insist that Duryodhana go and beg forgiveness from the Pandavas. Only then there might be a chance that they will forgive you. Otherwise, the kind of action that we have done today, not just stealing their kingdom, but dishonoring their wife, this is not something they will forget. So, Dhritarashtra just gets angry with Vidura. He said, you know, I called you to comfort me, but you are agitating me. He said, you are partial to Pandu's sons. You don't have the welfare of my sons at heart. I have no desire for your advice anymore. Go wherever you like. He sends him off. So Vidura leaves. Vidura follows and goes to the Pandavas and meets them in the forest and is there with them. But the next morning, Dhritarashtra finally, when he sleeps and wakes up, he says, oh dear, Vidura was such a close friend of mine. Where did he go? Why did I send him away? Well, then he says, send Sanjay. Please tell Vidura to come back. So, what happens is, he is not a complete demon because he has some affection for Vidura. He wants to hear good advice. In English there is something called, the damn is not a good word, but damning by faint praise. Suppose somebody invites us to their home for prasad, for food. And then they ask, okay, how was the food? It was edible. Now, it is such a faint praise that it's a criticism. Isn't it? It's such a faint praise that, it's okay. The other person, it seems like criticism only. So like that, if you say, how is this person? I like to hear good advice. So what that means is, they like to only hear, they don't want to do anything more after that. So the Dhritarashtra is like that. So he's filled with chinta. And for him, gaining the kingdom is the most important thing. It's even more important for his son. But his son has got the qualities from his father, and he has worsened the qualities also. But kamopabhoga parama etavad iti nishchitaha. So in general, so with the Dhritarashtra, his was like to hear good advice, that's all. Only hear, do nothing more. If we consider that, as I said, chinta is natural and unavoidable in life. Because in life, there is going to be uncertainty. And whenever there is uncertainty, there will be anxiety. So because you can say, uncertainty is just a fact of life. But what Krishna is talking about is, chinta that he's talking about is two things. It is immeasurable, aparimeyam. And then it is perpetual. It is pralayantam upashitaha. Now this kind of chinta, it is not normal. It is pathological. Pathological means it's like a pathology, a disease. So we all may have anxiety about some area of our life. Okay, if I don't get this job, what will I do? We may have some financial anxiety. If we are in a relationship, we are trying to explore a particular thing, and life that's not working out. But for most people, it's not that there are 25 areas in their life and all 25 are sources of anxiety. If it's like that, a person will not be able to survive. He'll just go crazy. So now if somebody has either too many desires, too many unrealistic desires, then everything becomes a source of anxiety. So why is this? Chinta, like desire, if you consider a coin. One side of the coin is desire, and the other side of the coin is fear. So this is the result of material obsession. When we are obsessed about something, then that material obsession on one side brings desire. On the other side, it brings fear. Like say, if somebody is a very attached cricket fan, as a form of entertainment, that's okay. But sometimes people, it's not just entertaining, it's entangling. It is completely consuming. So, I want my team to win. So that is a very strong desire. And if that desire is not fulfilled, or even before, will I win, will we not win, what will happen? It causes so much fear, so much tension. So chinta and ichcha. So kama and chinta, they go together. Now there is also, this is as I said, to some extent, it's normal. But when it is excessive, when it is disproportionate, when it is all consuming, that is where it is not healthy. So there are 4 purusharthas. What does the word purushartha mean? Have you heard the word purushartha? So purusha is what? Sorry?
Enjoy.
Okay, living entity, enjoyer. All of you have got very philosophical vocabulary. The simple meaning of purusha. Human being, man or human being, isn't it? So artha ka artha kya hai? Value. In this case, it's also purpose. So purushartha is human purposes. So human life has broadly 4 purposes. What are those 4 purposes? Dharma, Artha, Kama, and then Moksha. So now, what do these four purusharthas mean practically? Now, dharma, we can say it means religion, but dharma can also mean, dharma is one of the most multivalent words in the Sanskrit language. So dharma can mean religion, it can also mean ethics, it can also mean at a basic level discipline. Because what do the ethics teach us? It teaches us to be disciplined. Don't speak lies. What does dharma tell us? It encourages us to follow certain ways of doing. So it's discipline. So the idea is that, say, as we are growing up in our life, the way we grow up in society, especially if we grow up in a cultured family, in a functional society, then we learn some discipline. One of the most important things that parents need to teach their children is one of the most important words that a child who is growing up needs to hear is no. It might seem very unloving, but it's necessary. A child needs to learn boundaries. That say, if there are two siblings and they're eating food on the dining table, and then say the food in one kid's plate gets over, and instead of waiting for the mother to serve some more food, the kid grabs the food from the sibling's plate. The parents have to say, no, you want more food? Wait, I'll give you more food. The parents say, what is the need for boundaries? Let the child do what they want. Well, we can fast forward 25 years. That kid is now working in a company and there's a corporate dinner. If that man started taking from somebody else's plate in a corporate dinner, what kind of person are you? So boundaries are. So dharma is also about, in one sense, discipline is boundaries. So now, when we learn at a foundational level, when we learn discipline, when we learn some ethics, when we learn some boundaries, then we learn what is artha here in Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Yes, so basically wealth, or we could say resources. It could be wealth could be one resource, but there could be various kinds of resources. There could be contacts that a person develops. There are certain qualities that a person develops. If somebody has a commanding speech, now they can translate that into money by being an eloquent speaker and being paid for it. But just having capacity to communicate properly is a resource. So artha itself has many different meanings. Artha, we discussed, one meaning is purpose. Another is just literally meaning. Artha ka artha kya hai? Artha. Then it also means wealth. Bharat ke artha mantri kaun hai? Who is the finance minister of India? So in this particular sense, so basically the idea is, if we learn discipline, then from dharma we can get artha. Now we can look at it from a religious perspective, that when we perform yajna, then nature will give us rains and we'll get artha. That is one way of looking at it. I am looking at it from a more common perspective. Dharma will lead to artha. Artha, with artha, what do we do? Kama. Kama doesn't just refer to lust. It can refer at one level to lust, but kama can refer basically to desires. And more specifically here, it refers to fulfillment of desires. So, it is that when we have artha, then we can fulfill our desires. If we have resources, okay, I want to get a new house, I want to buy this kind of car, or I want to get this, I want to get that. We all have desires in life. And by this, when we go through this chain, dharma, artha and kama, then our desires are fulfilled to some degree. Now for most people what happens is, they go to dharma, artha, kama, and then from kama, they again come back to dharma. In the sense that, okay, I fulfill one desire, then I have another desire. So then again I start disciplining myself, I start working hard, and this goes on. But eventually, for a few people, this is the path that the majority take. Or the same person may take a majority of times, but a few from here go towards moksha. Moksha in this context means freedom from desires. That at this point a person realizes, okay, this is, I got a house, I got some position in society, I got a car, I got this. Let's, it's just like it can just be a treadmill that I can keep going on for the rest of my life. But there's a saying, what is it? Been there, done that. It means, okay, I've done this, there's nothing so exciting about it. That's not what I want to keep doing throughout my life. Been there, done that. So what else is there in life? And you see almost everyone, say by the time they become 40, 45, 50, they start thinking, okay, is there something more to life? It's not that they want to give up the life that they have right now. But even while they have that life, they want to look for something else. Many people nowadays, this happens, a midlife crisis. Midlife crisis means a person feels that I have achieved certain things in my life, but is that really of value? Should I have done something else? Should I be doing something more? So that question comes up. So this is the normal way the human journey grows. That dharma, artha, kama, and we may go on for some time in that. But over a period of time, a person comes to moksha. However, if you see in today's world, many people, they just focus on artha and kama. Dharma, in terms of discipline, is forgotten, and moksha was not even remembered, so you will have to forget it, isn't it? So, especially in the Western countries, it's not a criticism of the West, because West is also a very complicated place. But relatively speaking, in the West, there has been a significant level of prosperity as compared to India. And so that's why when young people grow up, they don't really have to discipline themselves and work hard. Now there are, in the West also, in America, there are a lot of passionate in the positive sense, intelligent people who drive technological innovation and other things. But if we go to American universities, the students who do the best in the American universities are basically Indians and Chinese. So what happens is the people over there, they are not really so driven to study, so driven to excel, because life has always been comfortable for them. Now some of them, no doubt, have a lot of zeal to achieve, but majority of them are quite apathetic. People are so nonchalant. Nonchalant, unworried. It's like, I am worried that you are not worried. Like somebody has an important exam and they're just not worried about it. And apparently, I am worried. Why you are not worried? It's an important exam. So basically, they've had so much comfort in their lives. Again, I don't want to absolutize. There's a difference between generalize. It's not the same as absolutize. Absolutize means absolutely everyone is like that. Generalize means many people are like that. And it's not just Americans who are like that. What happens is, if the immigrants stay there for 1 or 2 generations, then even their kids start becoming a little bit more apathetic. They don't start working so hard because they get used to the comforts. So what happens is, it is possible that some people may get artha without needing to do dharma. That means they just inherit a lot of wealth. Or they live in a country which is say a welfare state. Have you heard of this term, welfare state? Okay. I am giving you a lot of general knowledge also. See, welfare state basically, in one sense you can say every state is meant to promote the welfare of people. But welfare state is a political term where if a person is unemployed, then the government pays for their maintenance. Now, the idea is, why would the government do that? They say, okay, this person is not able to get a job, what can we do? So, now what happens, some people say that, if I don't get a job I like, I won't take any job. And the government will keep paying for them. There are places in some of the liberal states in America where people are drug addicts, and the government says that actually if you take drugs underground, drugs are illegal. You take drugs, they will contaminate, your health will get spoiled. So we will legally give you drugs free. This is, you would say it's insanity. But they say, actually, because America healthcare is supposed to be free, so what happens is people fall sick. And the government says that we will have to pay for their emergency care. So at least they come and take drug under supervision. Then we won't have to pay for it. We won't have to pay for the health expenses afterwards. But point is, there are welfare states in the world where if somebody is not a contributing member of society, and the government maintains them. Now what this actually disincentivizes discipline. This disincentivizes hard work. So if there is no dharma, then what happens is, if somebody gets artha ready-made, then they never grow up. It is dharma, it is discipline, it is boundaries, it is ethics that helps a person grow up, take responsibility. So if there's only artha and kama, then, so dharma, artha, kama, at least it's materially sustainable. You work hard, you get resources, you fulfill your desires, you work hard. At least it is materially sustainable. If it's only artha and kama, if this color visible? Okay, this is even materially unsustainable. No society can continue like this for very long. Somebody has to be a wealth producer in society. So the demoniac nature is of various characteristics, but generally the demoniac people don't care for dharma much. If they can get artha without dharma, then dharma is dispensable for them. We'll talk a little later about why they still follow dharma, but in general it's dispensable for them. So it's a peculiar, the value system in India and America is so different that, and we sometimes impose our cultural presumptions on the West. So recently one devotee sent me an article. See, he says, how selfish parents in America are. He said, if their children, especially their sons, are staying with them, the parents are asking for rent from their children. Now, when he sent an article to me, okay, then I told him, bro, it's not that the parents are selfish, it is the children are irresponsible. Basically what is happening is that the Western culture is such that when you go to college, you get a job, you move into your own place. That is the culture. But if the kids are not ready to move out of their parents' home, that's not because they love their parents. It's because they have no job and they have no way to earn money and they have no desire to get a job. So they just stay in the basement of their parents' homes, play video games, watch porn and waste their life. So the parents, they say that telling them you have to pay rent here. You cannot be a freeloader over here. That is the way of the parents to try to get the children to take responsibility. So the point is that, again, if there is no dharma, only artha and kama, it's not sustainable. So it is ironic that these kids, they don't really have much responsibilities, but they have a lot of anxieties. Normally, we would consider that the greater the responsibility that a person has, the later will be the anxiety. But it is not that simple. If responsibility increases, anxiety increases. Well, That's true to some extent. But if a person is truly responsible, as the responsibility increases, their capacity to manage anxiety also increases. Isn't it? So that's why, say, if you consider the Prime Minister of India, India has so many threats. One of my friends, close friends in Israel, he had gone actually initially to fight with in the Gaza Bank, Gaza Strip basically. So now there's a lot of tension and turmoil over there. If you consider the head of state of Israel, with so much anxiety. But it's not that such people who have a lot of responsibility, they are crumbling under the weight of anxiety. Because generally if a person is responsible, they also develop the capacity to deal with anxiety. That's a part of growing up. But what happens is, it's almost that if a person's capacity for responsibility is less, then their vulnerability to anxiety increases. Because what happens is, they have never learned to take responsibility. So, they are more vulnerable to anxiety. So, in small things going wrong, people just collapse. Oh, this person disrespected me. Like kids, when it causes depression. I posted my photo on Instagram and only so few people liked my photo. I'm worried about it. Well, if the biggest problem in your life is you didn't get sufficient likes on Instagram, then you really don't have much to worry in life. But for some people, their whole universe is shrunk so much that causes them unbearable anxiety. Now, this especially happens to teenage girls, much more than teenage boys. Teenage girls especially, it's been well documented that the greater the social media usage, the greater is the mental health problem, especially depression among girls. Girls are very image conscious, and if I post a photo and I don't get sufficient likes, or I do something and I don't get likes, their social identity is very fragile at times. But the point is that if one doesn't take up responsibility, that does not mean one will stay free from anxiety. Because what is happening is, often people think that it is responsibility that causes anxiety, which is true, but actually what causes anxiety is desires. Anxiety can come from responsibility, but anxiety can come from desires. Especially if the desires are irresponsible. Now what do you mean by irresponsible desires? That means I just have a desire and I am not taking any responsibility to try to fulfill the desire. It's like a small kid, I am hungry. And if the small baby, we could say, the baby is hungry, starts crying. And the parents run and the mother fondles the baby and feeds the baby. Now, if an adult, a teenage kid starts crying whenever they are hungry, parents will say, grow up. Isn't it? So, what happens? Okay, your hunger is as real. Hunger is a real concern. Your hunger is as real as a baby's hunger. But the difference is that if an adult is hungry, they need to take responsibility. How am I going to arrange the food? So, but if they don't take responsibility. So people, when they don't learn dharma, they just get artha ready-made. The problem becomes that they expect that I have a desire and the world should say yes to my desires. And if the world doesn't say yes to my desires, then what happens is, either the world is a terrible place or I am a terrible person. Well, not that, both are terrible conclusions. Isn't it? Because desires require work to fulfill. Nothing comes easy, nothing worthwhile at least comes easy in the world. So nowadays the idea of greatness, people say, I never take no for an answer, you say. I bend the world to my will. So that is one sign of greatness, people say. Get the world to say yes. If I have a desire, I am going to fulfill it. But while that is one side of greatness, but another side of greatness, grace to accept when the world says no. And even to the greatest of people, it is not that their desires are fulfilled. When the world says no, they gracefully accept and they move on. It's like when a kid is playing. Now, a kid is good and plays and wins a match. Say he's playing some game, maybe cricket or tennis or table tennis, whatever he's playing. Kid is good and wins, that's wonderful. But the kid loses and throws a tantrum and just walks away. Now the parents or the coach are saying, no, don't be such a sore loser. Go and shake hands with others. Why? Because your culture, your nature, your dharma is seen in how you also take a no. In sports, sometimes if one team loses, then another team wins. The other team can lord it over the first team, or the other team can be graceful. They can be gracious and it was a good fight. You played well, and that is quite sweet. If both the winner is not lording it over, and the loser is also gracious. So the point is that if one sign of maturity is that one sign of not even greatness, you can just say it's maturity. Maturity especially is the grace to accept no. So why is there is kama and chinta, Krishna says, the desire and fear. They come together when we expect the world to say yes to our desires. So otherwise what happens is, if the world says no, there are two conclusions. The world is terrible or I am terrible. But actually speaking, it needn't be either of them. It can both are terrible conclusions. Because things take time, things take effort. So we need to be patient, we need to be persistent. So this kind of chinta is very much there in today's world. And one reason is because many people grow up with this unrealistic worldview. That, I am entitled to Artha, and by that Artha, I should get my karma. But no, Artha requires Dharma. When there is a lot of jealousy in today's world. But most people are jealous of where others have got. That is, this person has become so famous, this person has bought this big car, this person has got this many marks in their exam. Most people are jealous of where others have got. But very few people are jealous of what others did to get there. Nothing in this world comes easy. So very few people are jealous of the hard work that the other person put in, isn't it? People are jealous of the fruits. So one of the characteristics of the demoniac nature is they always seek shortcuts. Not only seek shortcuts, they believe that I am entitled to shortcuts. The shortcut is no dharma, just artha and kama. And so we could say demoniac degradation when we talk about it. So one is little dharma, so that lot of artha and kama. They feel that I am entitled to dharma, artha and kama without dharma. That's worse. Artha and kama without dharma. And even worse is somebody thinks that I am entitled to kama without dharma and even without artha. That means that I don't have to work hard, I don't have to discipline myself, I don't have to get any resources, I'm just entitled to enjoyment. That doesn't work. And this is especially the danger of the digital world. And among the many problems, say with porn, is one of those things. that traditionally if somebody wants sensual enjoyment, you have to become responsible, you have to get a job, you have to earn money, then you have to find a partner. But what technology is doing is, somebody can have karma even without artha, leave alone dharma. So then this doesn't lead to any development of character. And many problems with the obsession on karma without dharma and artha. But one of these is that even the normal development of a person that happens when they go through dharma and artha to develop karma, to get to karma, to fulfill karma, that doesn't happen for many people. And now after this what happens? So we discussed that chinta and kama, they go together. Kamopabhoga parama etavaditishita. So if you consider the four purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So now what they are doing is, these four are there. Now among these, which are the most important? Yes, ideally speaking, this is 1 and 4. These are the most important. And 2 and 3 are, relatively speaking, these are less important. In the sense that dharma and moksha, now these two are largely in our control. Artha and kama depend on past karma. That, see, everybody can learn a certain level of discipline. Everybody can learn to live ethically to some extent. But okay, how much money will we earn? It depends on how well we work. But it's not just only on how well we work. Now, how many of our desires will be fulfilled? That's not in our control. So what happens is, when we fixate too much on artha and kama, forget spiritual elevation. If we fixate too much on artha and kama, it's not in our control. And because it's not in our control, and if we start defining ourselves by that alone, then we subject ourselves to a lot of insecurity. It's like, for some people, if their net worth is equal to their self-worth, then what is happening is, for them, artha has become parama. Parama means they have made wealth as the most important criteria for their life. For some people, their sex appeal, that equates their self-worth. Now, it means, how many partners can I attract? Some people just are proud of their sexual conquests. And okay, that is just, even if somebody succeeds in doing that, it is just, leave alone the spiritual side. In the material side, such people are living completely lonely existences. There's no relationship over there, no meaningful connection. It's just superficial gratification. So, if karma is elevated as parama, then the person's identity becomes very reduced. And that's why if somebody is based their entire identity on their sexual appeal, sexual attractiveness, that is going to go away with time. Among all professions in the world, sports has the least longevity. In most professions, by the time you become 40, 45, that's the time you start peaking. You got experience, you got training, and then you can go to the top. But in most sports, 40, 45 means you are like a dinosaur. Isn't it? And so, where a person's identity, it's not sex appeal, but it's just physical prowess. The person's entire identity is based on their physical ability. Then it can't last for very long. So even for women, if somebody becomes a model or a heroine, their capacity, physical attractiveness is not going to last for very long. Unless they can shift from, say, a sexual role to a maternal role, which requires a significant shift. It's psychologically, it's not easy for people to do that. Unless they can do that, then who am I? It's not a philosophical question for them, it's a psychological question. Who am I? I thought I was this attractive person, but I no longer have that attractiveness. Then who am I? So it becomes a problem. So this is, if you see, if our self-worth is low, then naturally insecurity and anxiety, they increase. So when they lose either of these, then what happens is, they are plagued by this question, who am I? But it doesn't lead to philosophical inquiry. It only leads to psychological insecurity. So this is a very unhealthy state to live in. So this is what Krishna is talking about over here. Chintam aparimeyam cha. There is immeasurable anxiety that comes up for people when they live in this way materialistically. So I'll summarize what we discussed. We'll have a few questions, then we'll take a break and then go to the next part. Okay. So we've been discussing about the demoniac nature today. So we started by discussing about the idea of nature. So nature refers to broadly the mind and the body, and there you could say the characteristics. It could be characteristics, it could be behavior, and then we're discussing about how this discussion in the Gita is in a context. So it's referring to broadly the Kauravas, but indirectly. So then we discussed about how the Kama and Chinta, they are like two sides of the same coin. The greater the desire, the greater will be the anxiety. While Chinta at one level is natural because life is uncertain. But in the case of the demoniac, what happens? The Chinta is, it's immeasurable. They have anxiety about everything in their lives. And it is perpetual, it is constant. And we were exploring why it is like this. So in this connection, we discussed the 4 purusharthas and how they normally work. So normal process is that dharma, in terms of, what does dharma mean in this context? Discipline. It can mean discipline, it can mean ethics, it can mean boundaries. So when one learns this, then one what is able to do? They are able to get artha. Artha is what? Wealth and resources. So then what happens after that? One is able to fulfill kama. Kama basically refers to here not just desires, not lust, but it's generally it's fulfillment of desires. And then after that, moksha is what?
No desire.
Yeah, moksha becomes freedom from desires. So now for most people, they will go on in the cycle back. They'll again seek dharma to get moksha. But some people will gradually move towards moksha. And this is a normal trajectory of growth. But then, so this is the normal way. But then we discussed about modern abnormalities. So modern abnormality is what? First it is just artha and kama. So there is dharma is eliminated and moksha is also eliminated. So when people get ready-made artha, for whatever way, it could be parental prosperity, it could be national prosperity, whatever it is. So when they get that, then they don't grow up. Then, because of if there's only artha and there's no dharma being developed, then what happens is, normally when we say anxiety, it is a result of responsibility. But responsibility also leads to capacity to manage anxiety. But anxiety can come from also desires, especially irresponsible desires. Irresponsible desires means I just desire and I expect the world to say yes. World should say yes. That kind of things. When the world says no, then we start becoming very worried. We start feeling the world is terrible, I am terrible. So then if it says no, then there is total insecurity, total anxiety. One starts to become resentful. And then we also discussed that in modern times it's only karma without even artha. And that's even, if there's only karma without artha, then that's even more toxic. Because at least to get artha, someone has to do something. And then we will discuss that if artha is parama or karma is parama. That means what? A person's identity is defined that way. This is the basis of their identity and self-worth. Then what will happen? They will have lot of anxiety. Because these things, we talk about this lot of anxiety, chintama parimeyam cha, it comes this way. This immeasurable anxiety comes because they have neither learned dharma nor are they seeking moksha, just seeking artha. So their net worth is the basis of their self-worth, or their sex appeal, or their physical charm or physical attractiveness is the basis of their self-identity. Then when that starts going away, then you just can't bear it. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, please. Do we have a mic? Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Priji, for that wonderful class.
Was it a wonderful class or a dreadful class?
Highly insightful.
Sorry?
Highly insightful.
Sorry?
It was highly insightful.
It is wonderful to know how dreadful the world is. Okay, go ahead.
Priji, this purushartha given us, dharma, the kama, moksha. So when there is kama, moksha becomes subdued by kama most of the time. So if moksha becomes subdued by kama, then dharma and artha, the motivation to do dharma artha will be kama. So it will be that people will come again and again to dharma. Like fulfillment of desire in itself is like kind murder. Fulfillment of desire. Fulfillment
It is?
of desire. So what type of desire which get fulfilled? Isn't it like oxymoron?
Well, it can be, but I don't think we have to be that pessimistic about desires. So, see, for example, where a young couple get married, they may be physically attracted to each other and they want to enjoy. But after some time, they have a child. Now, when they have a child, their mutual sexual attraction might be there, but in any civilized society, if the parents even have a sense of decency, then the child comes first. And then it's not that suddenly they become free from desires, but the other responsibilities come and they focus on those responsibilities. So, say a newly married couple, the level of karma that they will have, and a couple which has been married for 3 years, 5 years, they have 1 or 2 children, the desire naturally decreases. Now, of course, if a person is not taking up responsibility, if a person has not grown up with a sense of boundaries, then what will happen is that their attraction to the other person in the marriage will decrease, but then they will start looking for affairs elsewhere. That is because the dharma, the culture of, if you're married, then you have to live within certain boundaries. That has not been taught or that has not been internalized. But normally, it is not that every karma will lead to insatiable desire. Like we give the example, if you scratch an itch, it will worsen. But when, like say, if I'm giving a class and suddenly I get a desire to scratch my nose. Now, it will look odd if you look at class I'm scratching my nose. But just because I scratch my nose once, it's not the rest of life I'm going to keep scratching my nose. It is when there is already a rash and we scratch, we have an itch because of the rash and we scratch over there. That's when the rash worsens, the itch becomes stronger and we keep doing that. So it's not that every single desire is an addictive desire. Now, if say one day somebody has a desire, okay, today I want to eat parathas. It is not that one day you eat paratha, next day you have become a paratha addict. It doesn't happen like that. Now, can somebody be a paratha addict? Well, it's possible. But it's not that every single desire is equally toxic or equally addictive. There are desires which are addictive, but generally speaking, addiction happens not just because of the desires. It's because primarily of the emptiness in a person's life. If a person is feeling empty, so emptiness in life, that is there, that is when desires, one tries to use desires to full emptiness, and then the desires become addictive. But generally, how do you deal with the emptiness? The healthier way to deal with emptiness is take responsibility. So as devotees, we feel some emptiness in my life. But if we take responsibility, this is a service I can do, and I will do this service as well as I can. Generally, the more responsibility we take, we get a sense of meaning in our life. That my existence counts, it has some value. And then as meaning increases, the emptiness decreases. So if somebody doesn't have any sense of meaning in their lives, then when they indulge in certain desires, those desires become addictive. So if a person has a meaningful life and then they have a casual desire, I'm not saying that no desire will be addictive and that we can just carelessly indulge in desires. But it's not that every desire is pathological. We all have experience. We have a desire to eat a particular food. If we have that desire, it's not that just because we eat one day, every single day we start craving for that food. Can it happen? Of course it can happen. Like there are alcoholics, there are also a class of people called foodaholics. Foodaholics. They're just addicted to food. But that is not that common. Okay?
Maybe one more.
Yeah.
Please reflect on, like you reflected on how the children, those who are getting inherited the Artha, they're getting spoiled. But when we see in the Vedic society, like when the kings were there, their children, when get inherited with all those things, they blossoms more the kingdom.
Not always. See, Duryodhan was an example. So, but it is also possible. It's not necessary. See, the Pandavas had a hard life.
Yeah.
Although Pandavas were born to a king, they were not born in prosperity. They grew up in a forest. So now, is it possible that somebody can grow in wealth and still not get spoiled? Of course, it's possible. It depends on the parental training. See, one of the characters of Kshatriyas is that they are also taught a sense of responsibility. And for them, a sense of honor is very important. That it is like my duty to protect others. It is my duty to care for others. So basically, the Kshatriya sense of honor, for the Kshatriya, the sense of self-worth comes by how well can I protect others? How well can I take care of others? Now, of course, I may want comforts for myself, but those comforts are not just so that I can enjoy. Yes, they have royal comforts, but they also take responsibility. And the princes, when they are growing up, they see that their parent, the kings, the queen, they are dedicated to serving society. Then those are the values that they get. So it's not inevitable that just somebody born in wealth will become spoiled. But it can happen. If the dharma as an ethos is not taught properly, is not learned properly. So I'm not saying it's only the blame of the parents. Sometimes the children don't want to learn also. They're defiant. So in the case of Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan both were a problem. In the case of Vena, Anga was not a problem, but Vena was himself enough of a problem for both. Isn't it? Does that answer your question? You have something else in mind?
Really, I was asking in the sense that Raja ka beta Raja bhulta tha. So in that sense, like if there is a king, wealth is inherited. So how that king's son will get kingly character?
That's generally by the example that the king sets. That generally by the overall ethos in the kingdom. There were Brahmins, there were priests and sages who would also live and teach. So it is the education, the example, the ethos. All ethos means the overall way of living. So in general, a person's character or a child's character, you can say, it is shaped by three things. The education is what they specifically learn. The examples could be of their parents, of their teachers. And then there is the ethos. Ethos is the value system that they grow up in. So all three things. So you could say education is more the responsibility of the school. The examples is more the responsibility of parents. The ethos is largely of society. That's why they say it takes a village to grow a child, an entire village. It's not just a single parent's responsibility. Parents do play a significant responsibility, but it's multiple factors are involved. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes. It's come to you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. My question was that many times when people do Dharma and Artha but do not get their desires fulfilled because of past karma or other reasons, then how should one deal with it?
Okay, so if our desires are not fulfilled because of our past karma, well, generally karma, in the sense of past karma, is a mixed bag. Mixed bag means that sometimes we get less than what we deserve. But there are some areas where we get more than what we deserve. So we need to look at that. We all can think of areas when times when we studied a lot but we didn't get good mark in exam. But probably there are other times we studied only a little and that only came in the exam and we did well. That also happens. Now sometimes say somebody just applies to one company and they get that project or they get that internship, they get that job. Somebody else applies for 50 companies and they don't get something. So we might just call it luck. But if we look at our life, past karma generally works out both ways. We tend to remember the times when we got less than we deserve. And we blame fate, we blame destiny, we may blame God. But if we are really objective, we can look at times when we got more than what we deserve. And then we understand that past karma, it's not being unfair to me. It's of course, some people do have life harder than others. There is no denying that. Say, a kid who grows up in, say, the war zone in Ukraine right now. That kid's life will be far difficult for any kid's life in India or America or anywhere else. So, there are different scales of suffering in the world. But broadly speaking, karma is mixed and we need to look at times when we got more than we deserved. So, most of you know that I got polio. So when my first memory is, how it happened was that when I was 1, my parents took me to a doctor to get a polio vaccine. But somehow the doctor had messed up things and the fridge in which they had kept the polio vaccine, that fridge power supply had gone off because of some power surge. So the vaccine had greater concentration of polio germs. The vaccine that was meant to prevent polio ended up giving me polio. So that happened, that's terrible. I was just walking normally one day and after that I just could no longer walk anymore. Normally at least. But I don't remember this, I was just 1 at that time. But then my first memory of this is when I was probably 2.5 or 3 or whatever. Some neighbors or relatives had come to our home and they were consoling my mother. It's so sad that you got polio, your son got polio. And my mother is saying in a very clear, confident voice that whatever he lacks physically, God will give him intellectually. Now, I don't know what signs my mother had seen in my intellectual ability. Intellectual ability at that age. But somehow, maybe it was Krishna spoke through her, what happened by that is, I started identifying with my intellectual side more. And I found that yes, I could remember things faster, I could understand things faster. And when I went to school, I couldn't play games like other kids. But so while I was deficient in some areas, you could say that is because of some past negative karma, but then I was more proficient in some areas. And because of those words of my mother, my focus was more on the areas I was more proficient in. And that's why that didn't fixate in my mind too much. So for me, is when somebody sees me, the crutches is the first thing they see. But for me, my crutches are like my glasses. Without glasses, I can't see. But it's no big deal. Okay, put on glasses and move on with life. Pick up crutches and move on with life. So we need to see that there are times when we have got more than what we deserve. I can say I didn't do anything to, from this life's perspective, I didn't do anything to get polio. True, but I can say that I didn't do anything to have an above average intelligence also. It was not that when my mother's womb I fashioned my brain in a particular way. So we need to see that karma is a mixed bag. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you Prabhuji for such intellectual class. Prabhuji, this first stage of karma, dharma, artha, kama, applicable to devotees?
Devotees don't live in the material world.
Like, I give an example. Suppose some devotee who generally give feedback to kitchen devotee. So, kitchen devotee, kitchen team. So, generally kitchen devotees say one thing. You come to kitchen and serve here, then you will say what is the feedback of prasada. So, that this tendency that if some devotee is not doing service and if he gives some prasad and he give to judge में इसका मीठा ये कुछ गड़बड़ था. And if someone is serving, then he offer to Lord, then he eat that and he satisfied. Okay, अच्छा था. So, like they say both. Like we do some activities.
Okay.
You understand my point?
Yeah, okay. So, basically, as devotees, we still live in the material world. And the principle is that even if you want to serve Krishna, we need resources for serving Krishna. This grand planetarium is being built. For that we need artha. Now we can say in this case the karma is Prabhupada's karma. Now we won't want to use the word karma in a negative sense. But karma, it doesn't mean lust only, it just means desire. It's Prabhupada's desire. So we want to fulfill that desire. So, but for fulfilling even a pure desire, artha is required. And how are you going to get artha? Then we have to do dharma. So dharma could mean that, devotees themselves work hard and give donations. They earn money and give donations. Dharma could also mean that devotees become cultured and polite and trained so that they can approach people who are wealthy and encourage them to give money. So we are not immune to this principle. So even for us, this principle of dharma, artha, kama, the purpose of dharma, artha, kama may be different. In the sense that the kama is to fulfill Krishna's desire. So Prabhupada, it was his genius that when he started Krishna consciousness in the West, there is no pious Indians over there who are going to give donations. So how is the movement going to succeed? So it was primarily through Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada worked hard to write his books. And he inspired devotees to work hard to distribute the books. So that diligence, that discipline is dharma. So I'm using dharma in a very inclusive sense. Dharma is basically the endeavor that creates artha. So Prabhupada did that. Now in India we may get, because it's a pious society, we may get donations. But those don't come easily. We have to make efforts for that. So with respect to specific example, it depends on context. That means sometimes if some people feel very strongly that this needs to be changed, then they may have to take the responsibility to change it. But if that is not, either the responsibility to change it means they themselves take the service or they report to some senior authority, not that particular authority. And why is this worrying them so much? So now if we have say if somebody is not very good at kirtans, and some people are not very good at kirtans and they are very good at asking for opportunities to sing kirtans. Now that's not a very good combination, is it? Now we can say in our own morning program, if somebody sings a little bit off, that's okay, we can get them to sing. But if we are having a new program for new people, where we would really like to have nice kirtan, then maybe that person should not be singing over there. And if that is the case, then either they have to train and practice themselves so that they can sing better. Otherwise, that dharma in terms of that diligence to develop that artha, that singing ability, that has to be put in. So, but in some areas, maybe the authorities will decide this is not this important for us. Somebody may say, okay, we want to have prasad of a particular quality. We don't need a very opulent prasad. Okay, then we may have to accept that at that particular point. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so see, like when we are taking the situation of Artha and Kama, so my question was like when we are talking about the specific life, this particular life of the person, then we can see then there is only Artha and Kama. But in the case like somehow or other the person is getting Artha and by that he is satisfying his Kama, in that case he is getting that Artha because of his previous life. So if we see from a wider point of view, then we can see that he had done dharma part some time before.
Yes, correct.
So then why we are differentiating and why the output is different in both?
Okay, good question. So, if somebody is getting artha in this lifetime, isn't it because they have done dharma in previous lifetime? Of course, that is true. But they need to do dharma in this lifetime also to be able to use the artha properly. Isn't it? One of my otherwise they will abuse it. When I go to Canada, I stay at one devotee's home. So this devotee specializes in inheritance law. He's their attorney. Now, inheritance law means basically they make wills. And you know what happens where there is a will? Sorry, wherever there is will, there are many willing relatives. So what happens is that the parents make a will. Parents have earned a lot of money, but they want to give their money to their children. But if they see the children are irresponsible, then they will make a will by which that okay, we have this much property, this child will get, my son will get this per year. They'll only get this much from this, and they per year this much from this. It's not just like property, but if they invested money somewhere, they will get only this much, this much. Because otherwise, the kids may get $1 million and they will squander it in a year or so. And then they are living in poverty for the rest of their lives. So the parents make a will like that so that although it's the kids' money, they can only get it gradually. And then what happens, after the parent dies, the kids go to court and they prove that my parents were mentally unstable when they wrote this will and they break the will. And they take all the money in that. So this devotee specialization is that he write the will in such a way that it cannot be broken by the children. So it's almost like the parents are protecting the wealth for their children from their children. So if the children, they have done some past good karma, that's why they got the wealth. But we need to keep doing that good karma into the dharma in this life also. Otherwise we'll abuse it. And it's a very deadly combination if somebody has some attachment or addiction. And that time they get wealth. You cannot have a more deadly combination of us. And somebody just say getting into drugs, and that time they get an inheritance. Then they will be ruined. So this time, this life also artha is important. Dharma is also important.
Okay, but like this abusing prasad, like the exploiting point can come in this life also. When the person is doing dharma in this life, still he can do that. Like he can exploit in the same way. When he gets
So the potential for misuse is always there. Because we always have free will and the free will can always be misused. But we'll be talking in the next session about the idea of boundaries. See, generally, if we have grown up in a particular culture, then what happens is the culture brings a certain level of boundaries. So, for example, if we have been brought up in a reasonably cultured family, if we get angry, we may yell at someone, we may raise our voice, but we may not speak swear words, we may not speak profanities, or we may get angry, but we will not start punching someone or attacking someone physically. that generally a cultural upbringing brings certain level of boundaries with it. So even when people misuse their free will, it's very unlikely that they will like violate a boundary extremely in the first go itself. Maybe it's first time you do a little bit, and then you do a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then the person will get completely caught or ruined by that. Okay. Okay. So last question, then we'll take a break for some time. Yes, please. Behind.
Krishna. Like I mentioned here, that the people start looking for their self-worth because of whatever reasons that they start looking for self-worth. It also drips into like devotees also, when we start thinking that okay, I practiced for 5-6 years of devotional service, now I look myself as senior, I should behave in certain manner or something. Is it also that manifestation of our karma that we are wanting to show off ourselves, or will it get purified with bhakti only? Or do you have
Well, there are two different things over here. See, if we are looking for us, everybody needs a sense of self-worth. That is, and we have intrinsic self-worth in our spiritual identity. In our spiritual identity and our spiritual relationship with Krishna. That we are souls and we are parts of Krishna. And nothing can ever take Krishna away from us, in the sense that Krishna is never going to abandon us. So there is that intrinsic self-worth. But it takes a lot of realization to be satisfied only with that intrinsic self-worth. So we need some extrinsic self-worth. Now we can seek extrinsic self-worth from what we do, or we can seek extrinsic self-worth from what we get. The two are very different things. Now what we do is in our control. What we get, it's not so much in our control. So for example, if somebody gets their self-worth from behaving politely, helpfully, basically, okay, I have a service attitude, and if somebody comes to me for help, I try to help them. So now if I that is where I get my self-worth from, then it is possible. Maybe I cannot help everyone as much as I would like to, as much as people ask me, but I can do some things. But if my self-worth, like when I say I'm a senior devotee, what does that mean? That means that as soon as I come into the room, I see who are offering obeisances to me. Who all didn't bow their head down, I'm going to cut their head off. Now, if that is my idea of seniority, then that's not very much in my control. But if my idea of seniority is that, that I should have the qualities, I should have the behavior, I should try to, I have some spiritual knowledge, I should try to share that with others, not in the holier than thou way, but in the kind, helpful way, then that is actually good. That inspires us to act responsibly, and that also helps us to grow. Okay? Thank you. So, we'll take a break for about 15 minutes. It's 6:38 now. We'll come back by around 6:50. And then we will, 6:50 is okay, or you want to make it 6:55? 6:50, okay. So we'll come back at 10-12 minutes, and then we'll go on till around 7:45, 7:50. I speak for 30-40 minutes. We'll have 10 minutes questions. Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaura Premanand.